This video, we're going to cover one of the top most used heroes within Marvel Rivals, especially within the top 500 players and in the pro space as well, and that is Doctor Strange. So to learn Doctor Strange, it's pretty straightforward to understand some of his abilities. One or two of them are a bit more complex, which we will get through in this video, but we're starting off with his primary attack, which is the daggers of Denak, or his dagger attack, which is his primary fire. Now, this deals 18 damage per dagger, and it fires in a 5-round burst essentially, so you can deal a total of 90 damage with this, which is actually pretty solid if you think about it. Now, one thing I do want to mention with this, which is not kind of stated anywhere, which is after 30 meters you can't actually hit your opponent anymore. So basically it has a drop off where you're not dealing any damage. As soon as you get within that range, you can start dealing damage again to your enemy. Now, you've probably noticed as you deal damage to enemies, you get this bar on your screen which goes up to 100, of course, and charges up. Now, what this does is it actually can affect you negatively or positively. Now, the negative effects, first of all, is that if you let it charge up without actually using the ability, which we will show you how to use it in just a moment, basically you are then negatively affected by a 2-second anti-heal duration, which means your teammates cannot heal you for 2 seconds if you let this fully charge without actually using the ability. So now what we're going to do is build this back up again because we want to get it back to 100, and this is how we're going to actually use this ability. So once you've actually charged up to 100, now you don't need it to be full maxed out to 100, you press the R1 attack, and within an 8-meter radius, which is quite a lot, you actually deal 110 damage on a max charge of this ability. Now, you can also use it with only like a 20% charge as well. So as you can see here, we can use it, but it doesn't do the full amount of damage. So just keep that in mind. You want the max charge, and then you're going to deal the 110 damage that's available to you. His next ability is a very easy one to understand, and that is his shield. He's got an 800 HP shield, which blocks projectile damage. And as you can see here, it's taking damage right now. But what's the really cool thing about this is that when he puts it away, so as you can see here, 475 is then charging back up to 800 HP, so then you can start using it again. So it's a really useful ability to have, obviously to protect yourself as well as teammates. So his next ability, again another straightforward one, which is the Cloak of Levitation, which allows him to fly into the air for 6 seconds, and you can fire his weapons and do what he needs to do whilst you're up there. But another really interesting fact about this ability actually is that if you float up into the air and you want to summon a portal, you actually can stay floated in the air indefinitely. So that doesn't stop you after the 6 seconds. It doesn't bring you back down. You can basically make portals whilst you're in the sky, and it doesn't stop you coming back down, which is really cool to see. You can literally just stay there forever essentially, as long as you don't place any portals down. Speaking of portals, his next ability is a portal. So basically you can place your portals wherever you want. So let's say right here, and you can place the other portal maybe like up here, for example. It doesn't really matter where you place them, but that is how this ability works. And essentially you can just teleport through these as you jump through it. Your teammates can also go through them as well, and you can also fire through them. Also, enemies can also go through them as well, so please keep that in mind too. So there's a lot to this ability. You can reposition the original portal, so that is something to keep in mind. Lastly, we've got his ultimate ability, which is the Eye of Agamotto. So what we're going to do here is show you how to do it. You want to press the ultimate attack, and then basically it allows you to damage the enemies from their souls and also from their main bodies. So as your teammates are dealing damage to their bodies, you can deal damage to the green objects, or your teammates can also deal damage to them as well. And that's going to give you double damage in a 10-meter radius. So again, as you use this, basically you can deal double damage to both of these opponents, and plus obviously it's a lot easier to hit a non-tracked object because the souls cannot move. Now this only lasts for 3 seconds, so make sure you make the most of it, and make sure you're pretty much right in between as many opponents as you can be. Getting on into the gameplay now, and some additional tips for Doctor Strange. The first one is regarding his ultimate ability. Now, you want to pair his ultimate with other teammates' ultimates in the first place. So you're going to have 6 seconds where the enemies can be dealt double damage essentially, and they can't really move from a certain location, so you can still attack their souls. And this should be paired with like a Hela, a Iron Man, Namor, or Moon Knight ultimate, where you can deal as much damage to them as possible and try and get as many kills as you possibly can if you're in the right location. You're probably going to be in the front of the fight anyway as Doctor Strange, as you've got a lot of health and a lot of shield, so it makes sense to pair that with teammates. So obviously make sure you're communicating where you can. Next up, we've got his passive ability, which is basically going to allow you to release the dark magic and get that 110 damage. Now, make sure you release this as much as possible. You don't really want to be taking negative effects from not being able to get healed from your teammates. That's the first thing. So make sure you just constantly release it all the time, because it just makes sense to do that. And also you want to be using it in an area where you can deal as much damage as possible once again. So maybe you stack this up with your ultimate. That's probably one of the better ways to do it, because you're going to be dealing 110 damage. You can also deal some standard melee damage in between that as well. So keep that in mind when you are using your ultimate as well. You can also stack it with your passive ability, which is probably the best way to use it in the first place. Then we do have his shields. Now, the way you want to use the shield is a particular way. I've seen a lot of pros do it now, and I've started to use it within my gameplay as well, where you actually want to kind of toggle it on and off. You don't really want to have it stuck out the whole entire time, because the shield itself regenerates when it's away. So what that means is, whilst it's off, you can fire your weapon, so intersplice the firing with the shielding at the same time. So you can fire your weapon, when you need to reload, you pop your shields, and that kind of thing. And also you can kind of reload cancel with this as well, which is actually really cool. So it kind of makes it that you can kind of basically keep firing, pop your shields for a bit, protect yourself, protect your team, basically drop your shields again, fire again, and then you can just constantly do this on repeat, essentially, because that is kind of broken. And that is how Doctor Strange stays alive. Now, this only protects you from projectile damage, so just keep that in mind, not melee damage. So if you're coming up against melee characters, you're pretty much screwed, but again, it's still a really good way of using this ability. The other final ability that he does have, which is his most important one, and that is the portals. Now, we've made a whole video on the portals and how you should use them, but obviously you should be using them at the start of the game. The cooldown timer on these is ridiculously long, by the way, because it basically is like an ultimate ability. But make sure you are using it to fire through, get flanks, and there's many other ways to use this, and I've covered it in our previous video, so make sure you check that one out at the end of this one, because it goes over 5 massive tips and how you should actually use Doctor Strange and his portals. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.